Well, good morning or bonjour again, because I'm still in France. It's just a couple of days left now, so this is the last video I'll make from France. But I've been joined with another cyclist today. It's somebody I've known here for a good few years, but I bet we've only met a half a dozen times. The first time we cycled together, he nearly killed me on a hill. I had to stop and get my breath at the top because his big thing is not going under 15.5 miles an hour. I'm pleased to say that he's slowing down a bit. And so I'm pleased today to welcome Jim Condie.
Hello.
All right. Now, Jim, you're going to be probably well known for the wrong reasons. They probably won't know your name, but they'll know some of the stuff you've done because you've been a musician for all of your life. And what's your main instrument?
The main instrument would be guitar, although I'm best known for slide guitar, which is a sort of blues kind of thing with a metal or a glass slide on your left hand, or usually on the pinky.
Right.
And that's what I'm best known for. I also play lap steel guitar, pedal steel guitar, banjo, mandolin, what else? Acoustic and electric guitars too.
Yeah. Can you play keyboards?
A little bit.
So you're a failure then. Call yourself a musician. Apart from being a musician, Jim has some other talents as well. And what we'll do, we'll go for a ride. As usual, we'll look at the nice scenery and we'll have a chat with Jim on the way. So Jim, with the music, who would we have heard of that you've played with?
Right, well, try these and stop me if it's somebody that you've heard of.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ask the viewers to comment if they've heard of any of these people.
Okay. Well, the one everybody's heard of, I suppose, is Van Morrison.
Yeah.
And it was a short Scottish visit by Van that he asked me to put a band together for it.
Right.
And which we did. And we headlined at the Fife. It was Fife Aid when Live Aid had become a fashionable thing.
Yeah.
There was various spin-offs from that, and they asked Van to come up and do that, and he insisted on doing it as a secret gig, so it wasn't actually announced until he was there on the Sunday to close the festival. And he got me to put an 8-piece band together for that.
And that was the Jim Condie band?
More or less.
More or less, yeah. And in fact, there's a video of that on your YouTube channel, I think.
This is true, yes.
So we'll put a link to that in the description if anyone wants to watch it.
Yeah, it was actually, some of it was available on, they brought out a DVD of excerpts from the concert. So there was other people on it too, like John Martin and Marillion and various other big names that were on the thing, but Van and I topped the bill anyway. So.
Yeah. So what other names then? So obviously we've all heard of Van the Man. And anyone else we'd know of?
Well, there's Ali Parkaturia from Mali, who he actually went on to record a Grammy-winning album with Ry Cooder after he'd recorded with me. And his record company refused to acknowledge. They told us to destroy the tapes, which we never did, and because he was under contract to them. And I've stuck them out on the internet too, and there's tracks from that session that have had more hits than, oh well, I don't think it gets anywhere near Ed Sheeran, but it's 40,000 or so, 40,000 or so likes, not the hits.
Yeah. That's not somebody I've heard of.
Who, Ed Sheeran?
No, I've heard of Ed Sheeran, but not Ali Parkaturia.
Yeah.
It doesn't roll off the tongue like Ed Sheeran either.
Maybe in Mali it does, but anyway, that was a very interesting gig. I was asked once again to throw a band together for him. He was passing through Edinburgh on a UK tour, and he had a night off.
Yeah.
So I got some of my friends, great jazz players, and we got together with Ali half an hour before the public were allowed in, and just started playing. We didn't even know what key we had to guess what key he was playing in. And, it was a brilliant night though. And other names.
Some of the people you've played with, you've told me, have gone on to play with big bands such as King Crimson, Jethro Tull, Man for Man.
Yep. Well, there was Peter Vettese I played with in a band in 79, 80, a band called Solaris. It was when jazz rock was a very fashionable thing, and we all played at 100 miles an hour. And anyway, it was a difficult one to sell to the public. Peter got fed up with only getting about, 3 or 4 gigs a month with it. Peter then went on to, he buggered off to London basically, and decided to try his luck down there. And he was very focused on being a success. So he joined Jethro Tull. And he was with Jethro Tull for a few years, and then started getting more and more in demand. He recorded with Cher, Foreigner, the Bee Gees. I can't remember other ones, but you'll find his name on Wikipedia if you. And then there was Burrell from. Boz had played with Bad Company. He started out with King Crimson, a singer and bass player. So I played a lot with Boz. Some very funny stories of Boz on the road, but not enough time to tell them right now.
We'll have episode 2 for that.
Yeah.
So I guess, Jim, this must have taken you well outside the UK.
Yeah.
What sort of countries have you been to?
Oh, well, a lot in Canada, actually. I've toured in Canada quite a few times. With various people. The first time I went over there with my colleague from the Rootsie Tootsie band, Ronnie Tate, who was a singer and a harmonica player, and so we did a tour of mainly Ontario, some in Quebec, and then after that, through that I met loads of other. It was a connection I had made in Edinburgh with a friend, a Canadian friend, who'd come over to chase his roots, Al Black, and he got me over to Canada. And there I met Mose Scarlett, who I toured with about 8 to 10 times. Mose is an incredible singer. He's one of these who have now passed on. I've got quite a few singers who have passed on.
That happens when you get older, Jim.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, Mose Scarlett, Amos Garrett, whose big claim to fame was he did the prize-winning guitar solo in Maria Muldaur's Midnight at the Oasis.
Right.
You've heard of that one?
I certainly have.
So anyway, Amos has been dining out on that for the last 50 years.
I can imagine, Yeah, a lot of these names I have to say I haven't heard of, but they're all people that have been there working away, making music and making a living out of it. And I guess, would it be rude to say with you, you've not exactly made the big time, as it were, but you've always worked and you've always been making music throughout your career? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, pretty much, actually. I mean, I've sometimes taken little extra things with my, my connections, and it's funny how your connections in the likes of the art world, for instance, can lead off in sort of diverse ways, really.
I think the thing is as well with music, you're either making the big time and it might only be for a short time before you disappear into obscurity, or you're, I suppose you'd call it a journeyman musician. You're always working with other people, broadening your range and so on.
Yeah, after a while that becomes an acceptable way of making a living,
really,
actually,
precisely.
And you can, I've known quite a few people who, like the ones I just mentioned, Peter Vettese or Boz Burrell, for instance, who made their names when they were still, relatively young.
Yeah.
And or Amos Garrett as well, and they live off that. They can live off that,
Yeah. But I guess if you'd have followed Peter Vettese to London, maybe things would have been different. Do you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. They probably would have been, actually. But,
but it's one of those. It's which turn you take, isn't it? But I think, you know, I think
the
it's
benefit of hindsight. Eh?
well, yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, you've had a good living out of it. You've had a good life, and you stayed in your mother country, except for now when you've left and moved to France.
Well, Ray and I decided that we needed a little adventure, I think, actually, which is what we could either stay in Scotland or we could try France and have a wee adventure in France and just see how it goes.
And of course, it's the old alliance.
Exactly, exactly.
Jim has also worked with the BBC comedy unit, where he played the theme tunes to, for example, Naked Video and the 80s series Rootsie Nesbitt. His music has also featured in episodes of Your Cheating Heart and the Scottish detective series Taggart. There's been a murder. And of course the thing with the rock and roll lifestyle, Jim, is people died young. And I think you were telling me about, was it Burrell?
Yeah.
He died at 60. And quite interesting.
Yeah, it was just, I think it might have been just before his birthday, actually.
Yeah. Although it's tragic, it's a good way to go. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, I think it was probably the only way that Buzz would have, could have gone, really, actually. You know, all the drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Figured quite big, quite. Figured large in his life. So anyway, his doctor had told and advised him that he had to slow down or he wasn't going to see another birthday. So he decided to buy a house in France, moved there, in Spain rather, and moved there. And he planned to celebrate his 60th birthday with a big party. Busy all of a sudden. So they were rehearsing what they were going to play for in the party. It was well known. Some of your listeners will have heard of people like Alvin Lee from 10 Years After and Zoot Money, and can't remember, lots of others anyway, and they were all rehearsing away. And anyway, Boz turned to Tam, he walked over to Tam, sat down on a stool next to Tam and said, "Life doesn't get much better than this, does it?" And at which point he fell off the stool, and by the time he hit the ground he was dead. And that was, everybody decided that that was the way he had to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got quite a few other stories of Boz, but that'll be for episode 3.
Episode 33. You have a degree from the Edinburgh College of Art, Jim, where your tutor was the marvellously named Dame Elizabeth Blackadder. And I know you developed an interest in hyperrealism.
I've always understood art to be basically what you want it to be, and the label that you put around it might just be a convenient way of clubbing it together with other things. So hyperrealism for me was a chance to explore how you could define on canvas a shape without actually having the common sort of factors of light and shade, for instance. And I think chrome gave me that. A study of chrome gave me that. The way chrome distorts what it reflected in it. And old American cars from the 50s, for instance, were what I started with. Then a friend asked me to do paintings of motorbike engines, and this one is a Harley Davidson, and you can see the reflection of the owner of the motorbike reflected in one of the engine parts, and then you can follow it in other bits as well.
Yeah, so a bit of hidden detail.
Yeah, and the shape is purely suggested by the distortion of the reflection.
Yeah. So, any other art projects in the pipeline?
I'm too busy working on my house at the moment.
Yeah, Jim lives in Conflans in France, about an hour from where we are now, and it's a very old house. What age is the house?
Well, the estate agent reckoned that it was parts of it date from the 14th century, so and I think it could well be right there.
Yeah,
but it's difficult to. There are parts that definitely like this.
Yeah, it's certainly a place with lots of character.
Yep.
And a bit of woodworm.
Yes, and dry rot. And Colorado people.
Ah, well, at least you got your money's worth.
In terms of wildlife.
Yeah. And music-wise, Jim, you're performing with a local band, I think.
Yes, I've joined an Irish folk band, which comprises about half French, some English, and one or possibly two Celts.
So a token Celt or two.
The accordionist, who may actually have Irish roots.
Somewhere in the distant
surname's
past.
Kelly, anyway. And he wears an Irish kilt, so.
Oh well, that's all you need.
I never knew there was such a thing.
Well, that's the last of my videos from this visit to France. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm back in the UK now, and it's quite autumnal. I hope you found that video interesting. I think it's good to meet interesting people, find out a bit more about them. And I've got 2 more videos coming up with 2 very interesting people and locations. I've just spent some of the weekend on quite a radical upgrade to the Tempest. I'm not going to tell you any more about it at the moment. I want to try it out first and get used to it, and then I'll come back and make a video about it. So if you're interested in that and anything else I do, then please subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be informed of upcoming videos. And if you can give this one a like, it's a real help. So thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.